6 o'clock. Okay, I think we're going to get started on time. I just want to point out that tonight we are actually having two meetings. This first meeting was set up when, at a point where we thought that the second meeting was going to go very long because of one of the items that was on it. And so we figured we'd get this agenda over with so that everybody wouldn't have to sit through that. And by the way, just if you're here for the car wash item at the 7 o'clock meeting, for anybody who's here for that, that item has been pulled. So it's not going to be on the agenda tonight. So I'd like to call, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Okay. It's permanently withdrawn. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, I would like to call to order the August 10th, 2023, 6 p.m. meeting of the Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson? Here. Bill?
Here.
Griffin? Here. Grimes? Howe?
Here.
Haynes? Here. Rivera? Rodriguez?
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum tonight. Item 2, minutes. The minutes are going to be handled during the regular meeting, the 7 o'clock meeting. Item 3 is audience time. This is an opportunity for anybody here who would like to address the commission on any item, whether it's on the agenda or not. Items that are on the agenda you will have an opportunity to participate in that, make comments, ask questions, because that is a public hearing. So if you are here to talk about any of the items on the agenda, you can wait until it's actually being presented at the hearing tonight. Is there anybody here that wants to address the commission at this point? Okay, moving on. Item 4, old business. Do we have any old business that we need to discuss at this time? I don't believe so. Item 5, new business. 5A, zoning calendar. Okay, let me see. There are 2 items that are for the same project. Is that correct? The next 2. Okay. Zoning calendar number 2723 and 2724. These are both requests regarding the same project. So they will be presented as one presentation. However, when we vote on them, we will be voting on them separately. Zoning calendar number 2723 is a variance for the fence height at 600 Lakehurst Drive. And zoning calendar number 2724, site plan for a permanent casino facility at 600 Lakehurst Drive. And I would like to ask staff to make their presentation.
Okay, as you stated, 2723 and 2724 will be for the same project. The first one being the variance for the fence height, and the second one, the site plan for the permanent casino. You may be familiar with the location of the temporary casino by American Place, located on Fountain Square, just off of Waukegan Road and 120. The temporary casino is here, where it's labeled the new permanent
chart here that back of the room that everybody can look at.
Can you see?
Yes, I'm talking about the boosters.
So the permanent would go on the southeast side of where the temporary casino is. The applicants did provide a zoning analysis that you see in front of you. It's also in your packets. I do want to point out one thing, that we asked them to disregard the floor area ratio, as this is something that we are looking to eliminate in our Unified Development Ordinance. So we asked them to disregard that, but do follow the setbacks and height restrictions. Everything here complies with our zoning ordinance except for the fencing, and that is for the fencing height. The top image shows the type of fence that currently exists in the temporary casino. It just it goes throughout the property. And so they're looking to continue this type of fence, 6-foot black metal fence throughout the property for security purposes. Our current zoning ordinance requires a 4-foot ornamental fence in the front and corner side of any property, sorry. Any interior side and rear yards will require, can go up to 8 feet for this district. So since this is going throughout the property, we asked them to apply for a variance since it is above the 4 feet requirement. The second fence that they are putting up is actually 13 feet high, and this is off of the mansion area that they are proposing. This is, again, for security purposes. Those that are going to the mansions are the only ones that are allowed to cross this gate. So the style that they're going for is more of a prairie style. Our architect Frank Lloyd Wright was known for this type of style. It's known for their emphasis on nature and simplicity, and emphasizing on the horizontal rather than the vertical. The materials they're proposing just follows that type of style with the brick wall caps and stucco wall. Here are some renderings that they have provided, again emphasizing on the horizontal instead of the vertical. These images are showing the porte cochere, again highlighting the proposed materials of the metal roof, aluminum windows, aluminum door system, the stucco walls, metal roof, and granite stone walls. These are more elevations. The mansion is currently in progress, so they don't have the final, what's going to look like, but what they have provided is the footprint in the site plan, so that is what you are currently looking at for approval. Again, more renderings, and everything here is on your packets. So just to walk you through the site plan that you'll be looking at to approve or deny. If we look on the east side, the N is the entrance to the mansion, right next to the N, between N and M. This is where the 13-foot gate will be going. So you'll see the drive going to F, which is the porte cochere for the mansion, which is E. If you look up on the north side, H, that's the main entrance currently for the temporary. It will stay for the permanent as well. I, just south to that, that will also stay, and currently I believe that is used for the employee mostly. So when you go down H, you'll go to A, where they propose a higher elevation, and mostly because this is where pedestrians and the traffic of cars will cross. So that would just improve safety for the pedestrians and everyone else. So when you go down A onto C, you'll go to the roundabout where it can lead you to F, which is the main entrance to the casino. They are proposing a water feature, and that is L, right next to F, here. D being the casino. B, another raised crosswalk for the pedestrians. K is the casino loading, which has their own entrance off of Lakers Road. And I believe G is the last one, and it's the the stormwater basin that they are proposing. I do want to point out O. O is the entrance that is shared by this strip mall that currently has Marshalls and Buffalo Wild Wings. They will share that entrance. O also leads to the back J, which is the venue loading. Just to compare the location of the temporary and the permanent, we have on the west side the temporary and the footprint of the permanent on the right. They also looked into landscaping. They are to code, but we currently require an island for every 10 parking spaces. They did not necessarily follow every 10, but they highlighted where the green shows where it's less than 7 or less parking spaces, but still provided a landscaping island. The orange shows where they exceeded the 10 parking spaces, but when you calculate the green and the orange, it comes up to being even. So again, there are 2 applications for this project, one being zoning calendar 2723 for the variance. You have 2 options here. If approval of the variance would be required in order for the site plan to be issued. Denial by the City Council would result in the petitioner proposing a shorter fence and gate or operating the facility without one. So those are 2 options for the variance application. For the site plan application, if you were to recommend approval, staff does recommend these conditions. These were also in the site plan approval for the temporary that still is appropriate for this site plan. Number 1 being compliance with all local, state, and federal laws. Number 2, complying with additional requirements under the B2 district and Western Gateway Redevelopment Overlay District. Number 3, finalizing the fencing and applying for a fence permit. Number 4, finalizing any signage plans and again applying for a sign permit that will be reviewed by planning and zoning and the building department. Number 5, all building code, engineering, and life safety requirements must be satisfied by the approval of the building, engineering, and fire departments. Number 6, renew any necessary licenses for the business and the location. 7, installing building enhancements such as security cameras, lighting, and other improvements to ensure safety of all employees and customers. Number 8, any noise that is generated by the permanent casino should not be audible from any adjacent properties. Number 9, coordinating with city's traffic consultant on an ongoing basis. Number 10, they must provide on and or off-site traffic management personnel. Number 8, the petitioner must commission transportation engineering professionals to monitor on and off-site traffic and parking activity during the surge of opening activity. Following a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, the application will move forward to City Council for review. Denial by the council would result in the existing temporary casino to remain until another site plan for the permanent casino is approved or their time with the Illinois Gaming Board expires. Any questions?
Any questions from commissioners? Mr. Howard?
Yeah, I'd like to recuse myself because our firm has a prior relationship with the petitioner.
Thank you. Any other, yes, Commissioner Haynes.
We saw a picture there of the 6-foot fence. I don't recall seeing anything showing what the 13-foot fence looks like. Are they the same?
It's here at the bottom. So it's a gate. The highest point being 13 feet.
Okay. Me? Whatever you want to share, I'm willing to listen.
All right, and you are, no? Okay, yeah, I was asked to ask anybody who comes up to speak, please don't touch the microphone. It is adjusted so it should pick up from any angle. Okay, can you hold just a second, please? Yeah, okay, I think it would be better if we wait till you make your presentation. Right now, this is the city staff's opportunity to present their position on this, okay? Yeah, you'll have an opportunity to do that, okay? Thank you very much. Any commissioners have questions of city staff? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, next step, we're following a new order. So it's kind of out of order from what we've been used to. The next one is going to be for the applicant to make a statement, so I guess this is your time. Who is going to be presenting for the petitioner? Are you the only two?
Yes, we have four of us are here.
Okay, well, why don't I swear you all in case any of you are asked to provide any information. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, please proceed. And as you speak, please identify yourself and your affiliation to the project.
Okay, thank you all. My name is Alex Miller. I'm Chief Development Officer for House Resorts, the owner operator of the Casino. With me today, Cliff civil engineer. Cliff Corkman heads up our construction, and Carl Camelucci is one of the leaders of our legal team, our land development attorney here. So really, I think Isabel and Noel did a great job putting this together, and pretty clearly showed what it is we're doing. So, I'm mainly here to answer any questions you may have or about the casino in general or anything with this plan. I do want to turn it over to Brian to kind of walk through some of the highlights of the plan, and he can also answer any more of the technical questions that you may have.
Also, anybody who speaks, please, before you leave, there should be a sign-up sheet on the podium, is there?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like you to sign your name, put your information on that.
Thanks, Alex. My name is Brian Wazalowski. I work with Gaywalt Hamilton Associates. We are the civil engineers for the project. I think Isabel did a great job kind of coordinating everything on this, but one thing I think that a couple things we can add is as we approach the permanent casino site plan, you can kind of tell it has a different feel than the temporary that we reviewed with the commissioners last time around. Full House Resorts is really interested in that user experience on site. So we put a big emphasis on having safety elements, higher visibility elements for both pedestrians and vehicles as they navigate throughout the property. And that's kind of shown with the roundabout that we have outside the Porte Cochere, the roadway that we take in there. We're being a little more conscious on where we have pedestrian crossings and how we highlight those areas so that way people are expecting pedestrians to be in those locations. It's very different than kind of the big box retail that a lot of areas like this are drawn up as. But it's really back to that intent of really making sure that those accesses, the routes, and everyone knows where they're going. We don't have confusion between both pedestrians and vehicles. We're providing a good environment both as people are coming into the site and really experiencing the feel of this permanent casino. Isabel did show that phase 1 plan that showed both the temporary and the permanent. That is something that the design team, we're very cognizant of that as we're developing everything forward in this plan. We have made some changes to that in terms of the things that we anticipate being open when the temporary is still operation but the permanent is under construction. So we're ever evaluating and making improvements to that plan to ensure that when the permanent opens, it really does feel like a new user experience rather than that we just have a bunch of temporary stuff with pardon our dust signs on it. So we're evaluating this and still making quite a bit of changes to it. Currently, right now, one big change that we have proposed with Full House that we're working through the design team on is we are looking to have vehicular access into the porte cochere when the permanent opens before the temporary is demolished. So that is one change in here that I did want to point out. And another big change with the site plan that we're currently working with is stormwater detention. We showed 3 possible basins in the current site plan that's submitted. We still are evaluating how we're going to manage stormwater on site. We know what the requirements are. We have the stormwater report that was approved as part of the temporary that we need to comply with throughout construction. So we're still currently working to figure out the best way to manage that as this project's developed. So the stormwater basins may be in the location shown here, they may not be, but we'll work with city staff as part of that review as we progress through the design and the permitting of this to make sure that we're complying with everything that we said we were going to when we developed the temporary and making sure we're meeting all those requirements going forward. But overall, I don't think there's much else regarding the site that we really wanted to touch on, so we're here happy to answer questions, and we appreciate your thoughts and willingness to listen to our presentation.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant?
I have a comment.
Please.
I like the Frank Lloyd Wright style. It's very refreshing. So I like your finishes, all of that. It's very nice to see.
Thank you.
And I'm interested in your stormwater retention. I know you have a fountain. Are you doing fountains in the retention basins, or what are you thinking?
So at this time, we're not planning on doing detention within the basins. It was something that we looked and spent a lot of time kind of figuring out. Unfortunately, because of the grading of the site and the experience that we want elevating up to the casino, that fountain is up at the grade of the finished floor of the casino, and all our stormwater kind of needs to be down the hill. So unfortunately, we're not able to really make that work to the level that we wanted. So right now, it is just a fountain and a water feature.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Okay. At this point, I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out in favor of this request. Yes, please come forward. Is there anybody else who's going to want to speak in support of this? Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I know I'll get a chance to ask questions later.
And although we all know who you are, please give your name.
Oh, sorry, I'm Lynn Florian. I had a couple questions. Can you put that rendering back up? Is it okay if I ask questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the fencing we're talking about, is that gonna go around the retention or ponds also? Because if they're down low, I'm envisioning someone, like going down the hill and falling in the pond or whatever. So is that the same fencing around the ponds?
Yeah, the fencing does go around the perimeter of the pond. Currently, we don't have a plan to fence all the way around every single pond on all 4 sides, but we are, the hill that goes down to it will not be to the extent that it is today. It will be designed, to meet the ordinances and permit requirements of the city, and if we do have standing water in it, there's standing water in the pond currently out there today, but that's not the intent. That's there right now because of erosion control practices that we need to implement while we have active lead disturbance on the site. But it will be a dry bottom basin, so there won't be water. In areas that have water, we'll have either a depth of less than a foot or a safety shelf for if someone was to end up to fall in there, they would have quite a bit of ways before the water gets too deep.
You can drown in about 2 inches of water, but are our codes, do they require fencing all the way around? That might be something we want to think about changing. And then my other question, the way the entrance is, it's furthest away from most of the parking. Was that intentional? Was that just the way it had to work out because of the fountain?
So for the entrances on here, we have the H, the I, are really the two main entrances that everyone will be using to access the casino. And the reason they're situated where they are, one is circulation on site. The intention is we really wanted the main roads where the predominant vehicle movements will be. We wanted to separate that from the parking. Wherever you have high vehicle movements, you kind of want to have that so you don't have the opportunity of someone backing out in front of you as you're navigating into the site. So the intended traffic movements here is that H up on top is where people would enter. They would come to that area A, which is in the middle of the site, which is an elevated intersection that will have some decorative features, some additional pavers, possibly colored concrete. We're working through with the landscape architecture team on exactly what that looks like. But then from there, people would either drive forward to go through the roundabout to go up to the porte cochere, whether they would be dropping someone off. It could be Ubers or Lyfts dropping people off. It could be people dropping their car off for valet. Or people could go left or right to enter the actual parking lots to park and then walk into the casino. So the traffic movement, the entrances are designed in a way to try to limit the impacts and the conflicts that we have with pedestrians on site and really get people to where they need in the most efficient way possible.
I really meant F. The entrance to the casino, the people walking in.
Walking in, yeah.
Not the traffic coming in,
Okay.
the people walking in the door. It's on this end of the casino instead of like being in the middle or being close to the parking.
So F's the porte cochere, so that's obviously the main entrance that people will see. There will be other entrances to the casino. We don't call it out on this plan, but on the north side of the casino, kind of right underneath, forgot what letter it is. It's the elevated crosswalk. Yep, that one, B. So there is another entrance to the casino there that anyone parking in that northern lot would likely use. And anyone that's going to the porte cochere that's in the parking lots to the west, there's a sidewalk that we have that'll get them up there as well. So there will be a couple.
I didn't understand that was another entrance.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all, sorry.
Okay.
Those were my two
Do
questions.
any of the commissioners have questions of Alderman Florio?
Can you explain what an elevated crosswalk is and this elevated intersection A? I don't know what that means.
Sure. So in traffic planning in urban environments, there's studies that they've come out that the elevated crosswalk in A is similar to, we have a few of them on the temporary site right now that are just a lot narrower. They're essentially larger, more visual speed bumps to slow down cars. But what makes an elevated intersection, which is A, unique, is the entire intersection is going to be elevated. So as cars are coming up to it, they'll have to drive up anywhere from 4 to 8 inches, depending on the grading. It changes the color of the pavement, so it's a visual cue for them. There will also be different elements along the curbs that really give them cues that they're not on a highway to slow down. And then it also, when people are crossing the streets there, they're raised up, so they're more visible from a vehicular standpoint as well. So that's what's proposed there right now, and that's our intent for that area.
Commissioner Griffin?
I'm a little hesitant on some of the changes that have been made. I see that the parking has been cut by 266 spaces. That's the first thing. The second thing, there's no hotel. I mean, this is a completely different plan than what we were presented. And there has not been a traffic study, am I correct on that?
Okay, so a few things, Commissioner. The changes to the plan have actually increased the plan. The hotel, and this is maybe we should have clarified this earlier, when we mentioned the mansion, that is the hotel. So the mansion is the 20-suite, high-end luxury villas hotel that was always presented. And so that's what you see there as letter
Well,
E.
who's gonna stay there?
Hopefully some good gamblers. And then so that was in the original proposal, and that is still there today. And I apologize, I forgot you had another question, but I don't remember what it was. Parking spaces. This is the parking that we've got on there right now. With this plan, we feel this is more than adequate. We do have preliminary plans for a phase 2 parking garage that we're going to add at the appropriate time. And so obviously if our parking lot is full, that's a very good problem that we want to have, and we'll make sure to add parking to the site at that point.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we are premature, because this is back in court. I don't even know whether we should be discussing this. I hate to see you spending money that may change.
Chair, if I may address this point. So this is before the board, just on consideration of the site plan, the variances. Anything outside of the standards you're required to consider, including pending litigation or finances or anything that is outside of the specific standards, wouldn't be appropriate for consideration. So as for what may or may happen in court, it's not before this board.
Well, we shouldn't consider anything.
Should not consider anything other than what is set forth in our ordinance.
We're just here for planning and zoning issues.
Well, I know what I'm here for. But there's confusion.
The legal matters that are in litigation now are not something that we are involved in considering. This is just brought to us for our recommendation regarding the zoning, planning and zoning issues.
Well,
If people are gonna start construction based on what we say and do, that's not fair either.
So, Commissioner Griffin, I'll say this, to the extent that litigation affects the construction that is underway, that is a risk that the applicant would have to take. If there's some sort of injunction, some sort of order from court that orders them to do something that is outside of their plans or interests, that's just, that's a risk they undertake. However, our recommendation to the city council and the city council's approval of their request is outside of that consideration.
They didn't do the right thing in the first place.
Anything else from commissioners? Commissioner Bill.
I'd like to make a comment on that, the presentation you've given is and I'm mirroring what another commissioner had said. Basically, you're looking after pedestrian safety, visual impact. I think it's a very well put together plan. Can you hear me now? Okay, all right. I just wanted to mirror basically what the other commissioner had said about the presentation that we have here in front of us. Is basically we've looked at pedestrian safety, we've looked at security, we've looked at parking, and we have the insight of what you're doing here. I think it's a well laid out plan, and I think it's something Waukegan can be proud of too. It'll be part of our image and going forward. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'd just like to read into the record 2 letters of support that we received for this project for zoning calendar number 2723. The first one, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, George Hildiel, who lives at 2290 Holly Court, Northbrook, Illinois. He's the owner of the property at 4101 Fountain Square Place, and he is in favor of the Alex Stoliar and FHR Illinois application. The second letter of support is from Richard Silverman, MJKF SOW Real Estate Holding Company, 1622 Willow Road, Northfield, Illinois, and he is the owner of 3901 Fountain Square, and he doesn't give any text, he just indicates that he supports this project. And the next item is going to be opportunity for anybody here who would like to speak in opposition to this request to come forward. Is there anybody here who would like to speak out in opposition? It's okay. Moving on. There's no need for rebuttals. Do you have any objections? I'd like to ask the applicant to make a final statement, please.
Just want to say, you know, we're excited to be a part of Waukegan, and we agree, Commissioner. This is going to be great, obviously for us as a company, but this is going to be great for Waukegan as well. And we appreciate your support and look forward to a very long relationship with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, then what we're looking for is a motion. We're going to take them separately. First one is zoning calendar 2723, request for variance for fence height at 600 Lakehurst Drive. And what we're looking for is a motion to either recommend approval or denial of this request. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Commissioner, I make a motion to approve zoning calendar 2723 with a variance in fence height for 600 Lakehurst Drive.
This is a motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Bill. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin? Griffin? Griffin?
I'll pass.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
He's recused.
Rodriguez? Yeah.
Yes. Motion carries.
Do we want to go back to Griffin?
Commissioner Griffin, did you want to,
Pardon?
did you want to vote on this, or are you gonna, you just want to pass?
I'll pass.
You just want to pass?
Is that
Okay.
an abstain? Commissioner Griffin. Commissioner Griffin, are you abstaining?
I'll stand.
You abstain, okay. Thank you. All right, next item is zoning calendar number 2724. You know, these might sound like just technical differences, but there's a reason for the wording. Next item is zoning calendar number 2724. This is a request for a site plan for a permanent casino facility at 600 Lakehurst Drive. What we're looking for is a motion to recommend either approval or denial of the request.
I'll make a motion to approve zoning calendar 2724, the site plan for the permanent casino at 600 Lakehurst Drive.
Motion by Commissioner Anderson to recommend approval,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Bill. Do we have any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please.
Griffin?
Yep.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck with your project. And the next step is going to be Community Development Committee, Tuesday, September 5th. It's going to be on Tuesday rather than Monday because of Labor Day. It'll be in this chamber at approximately 5 p.m. Thank you. If Commissioner Haug is around, he can come back in. I don't see him. Do you see him? Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll wait till we see if Commissioner Haug is still here. Yeah, he's gotta be here, all of this stuff is still here. Here he comes. Welcome back, Commissioner Howe. Okay, good. All right, next item on the agenda is zoning calendar number 2725. This is a request for a map amendment from CR, Conservation, Recreation, Agriculture, to R2, Single Family District at 36955 North Northern Avenue. Can we ask the city to give their presentation?
36955 North Northern Avenue is currently outside the boundaries of Waukegan. They are looking to annex into the city, but in order to do so, they would also have to rezone the property from CR, Conservation, Recreation, Agriculture, to R2, Single Family Residence. The annexation approval goes through the Community Development Committee and then finally Council. So by the time this application, map amendment application goes to Community Development, that the annexation will be presented as well. Just to give you a rough idea of where the property is, as you can see on the left, it's just outside the boundary, but it is adjacent to the city of Waukegan. We have Beach Park on the north, and then that area that's not colored, and it's tannish color, that is currently unincorporated Lake County. To just zoom in, it is on the east side of Northern Avenue, just south of Blanchard Road and north of Wall Avenue. The reason for annexing into the city is that they are currently on well and septic, but they are having issues with the septic system. And Lake County has told them that it does not qualify for repair, so their only choice is to annex in so that they can get city utilities. In front of you is a utility map of where our storm, water, and sanitary lines are currently located. The orange is sanitary, blue being water main. So as you can see, those two lines end right before their property. So it would be an easy connection to both sanitary and the water main line. They have been in contact with our city engineer, so they are aware of this connection. Connecting to city utilities is at their own expense, so the city would not be paying for anything unless we are extending and looping around these two lines to where we have on Northern Avenue, the sanitary and water main. But again, connecting to city utilities, once they're annexed in and the map amendment is converted to R2, then they would need to pay. So you have a few options. If annexation is approved by City Council, rezoning this property to R2 single-family residence would make the current use conforming. If annexation is approved by City Council, but the map amendment is denied, this residential property will remain legal non-conforming in the CR Conservation, Recreation, Agriculture District. If the annexation is denied by City Council, then the map amendment will be voided. Questions?
Mr. Bill.
From my day job, I ran across this before in the city of Highland Park, and I know that water and sewer, they don't like to make a dead end, so this basically, the connection to the adjoining system that's already there, making a loop out of it probably would be more effective. That's up to the city planners, of course. But, well, you heard me, so, I'm just wondering, the fees and stuff like this, will this be a levied fee that would be just assigned to their property that they would have to pay before the work starts or after? Or how does that work?
Before.
Okay, all right.
Before, sir.
Thank you.
And I do want to point out that once one property connects, there's the opportunity of other surrounding properties that are currently not in the city connect as well. So there was a talk of looping this around, having the opportunity of those on the west side to also connect. But again, this is just a talk. It's nothing permanent.
So you're
Ms.
actually
Anderson.
having conversations with the other property owners near, between Blanchard and Tyler?
No, but the residents around it did get a notification of this map amendment pending the annexation, so they are aware of this connection. So perhaps it clicked on in their mind that they have that opportunity to connect, but we are not talking to any residents currently.
So a request for annexation has to be made by the property owner, or would the city consider annexing those couple of blocks?
There is an option that the city could proceed of forcing annexation, but currently we are not looking into that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. Sure, Commissioner Haynes.
What, if any, would the planning and zoning department say would be a negative to including this residents in this loop, or to allow them? It doesn't, in what I see no negatives, but I'm just curious if there's some I'm not aware of.
Any negatives for?
To allow them to connect, you know, presuming the annexation is allowed, to allowing them to connect to the water and the sewer.
I don't see any negatives. I mean, adding one more property and adding connection we would be selling more water. Also, by expanding the boundary, again, it'll expand the possibility of other properties annexing in as well, because they would be adjacent to this property. But I don't see negatives.
So because the cost is bared by the residents.
Correct. Everything would be out of their pocket. Again, once they're annexed in, they are subject to any zoning ordinances that we have. Any code violations would be done by the city, not Lake County. So they would have to comply with everything.
Any other questions for the city staff? Okay. I'd like to ask who's going to present on this? Who's the petitioner? Okay, are you all going to be speaking? You're objecting. Okay, I just want to know who the petitioners are. 3 of you? Okay, what I'd like to do is to swear you all in, please, in case any of you happen to end up speaking on this. Okay, please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? They all answered in the affirmative. Okay, please come up to the podium, and as you speak, please state your name and your affiliation to this project. And also, please make sure that you sign the sheet before you leave the podium.
Good evening. My name is Mike Edelman. I'm an attorney. I practice in the real estate area, and I'm assisting Anna and Antonio Rilo, who bought the single-family residence at 36955 Northerly Avenue, December 29th of 2020. They closed between Christmas and New Year's. And unfortunately, it was only disclosed to them that they were buying a house with a failed septic system the morning of the closing. And their option was to abort the purchase, which wasn't really a viable.
Excuse me just a second. For the record, I want to mention that Commissioner Rivera has just arrived and has joined the meeting. Thank you. Please proceed.
Sure. So aborting the closing wasn't really an option. And instead, the attorneys, and I was not their representative when they purchased the property, worked out an agreement, set aside seller proceeds and escrow to repair the failed septic system. Clearly, we were in the middle of winter, And it took a period of months before it was pursued and discovered that Lake County would not approve the rebuilding of the failed septic system because the property didn't meet current code requirements for that. So our sole option was to request annexation to Waukegan and connect to the water and sewer, which you can see is about 60 feet away from the property. So consequently, we've met with Noel and her staff, and we've applied for annexation. It's our understanding annexation, if approved, brings the property in its CR, conservation recreation. And so we're here before you tonight requesting a map amendment to approve the zoning upgrade from CR to R2. Property's currently zoned R1 in unincorporated Lake County. The surrounding properties you can see are all R2 in Waukegan, so the zoning we're requesting in the map amendment tonight is compatible with the surrounding zoning. We have a draft amendment. City attorneys have suggested some revisions. We've agreed on a draft annexation agreement, talks about connecting to the utilities. It does not address the looping, and I understand the looping. I was an alderman and on plan commission and zoning myself where I live, so I understand the desirability of it. I don't know if the cost of that would make it prohibitive for the RILOs. There just may not be sufficient funds set aside in escrow, and then it presents all sorts of other issues. But that's pretty much the thumbnail sketch on why we're here before you this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And by the way, the RILOs now, they've lived there since December 2020. They've had to pump their septic tank 3 times now at about, on average, $400 a pump out. So they're anxious to be annexed and connect, and Mr. Rilo's kind of an artisan with cars in his retirement. He's going to rebuild the garage, and we're just looking forward to becoming residents of Waukegan. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners have any questions for the petitioner? Sure.
I just have a question for staff regarding the comment about the cost of looping being potentially prohibitive to the resident. We, as the city of Waukegan, we wouldn't ask that resident to pay for that cost of looping, would we?
You're correct, Commissioner. If the city engineer and the water utility superintendent opt to loop the system, that cost would be borne by the city. It would probably be done at the same time that the utilities were being accessed for this connection, but that burden would not be placed on the residents.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Okay, I'd like to ask if there is anybody else here who would like to speak out in support of this request. Okay, I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out in opposition to this request. Please step forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please state your name and your affiliation. to this
Gene
project.
Willis. I live on Blanchard. And reason I'm here in behalf of our neighborhood to object, and reason being, if it's gonna, if he gets city water and sewer, if it's gonna affect our property, if he's gotta go buy our property, it's gonna cost us. It's going to cost us for him to have city water and sewer. That's my question. And I've talked to the people in the neighborhood that's got these letters, and they've signed them, and they've had them authorized and sent in, they're objecting themselves, because we don't want to pay for something that he wants.
Can anybody answer that?
Just to clarify, are you asking whether the taxpayers will pay for his connection?
Right.
Is that the question?
It has to go by our property.
No, he would pay for the connection from the existing line to his property. Or
Okay.
they, I'm sorry. Both. The property owners would pay
And
for
where's
the
it coming
connection.
in at, off Blanchard, or?
So if you look at the screen up there, she's
Oh.
showing you that the orange line
Off
is the
Tyler?
sanitary sewer, and the blue line is the water main. So, and this dark square is the property with the white background.
Yeah.
So they would connect from their property there down to that sewer line and that water line that's nearest their property. And they will pay for that personally out of their funds, whatever their source of funds
So it
is for
won't
them.
affect anyone on Blanchard Road?
Nope, everybody would keep their same connection and there won't be any additional cost for anybody.
Okay.
It's not like a special service area or any of those things. It's a direct connection for the property owner that the property owner will pay for.
All right, because I've lived out there over almost 50 years, and my septic and sewer is fine. And I just had my septic checked last year in September, and it's fine. So I don't want to have to hook into city water.
Are
Because that's
you-
going to affect your taxes, I'm sure.
Are you currently in the unincorporated area?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So the city can only require that properties within the city boundaries connect. We can't require anybody in the unincorporated area to connect. However, if somebody who was unincorporated wanted to annex to Waukegan, like the Rilos do, then they would have the ability to also connect. But you're not required to if you're in the
We won't be
unincorporated area.
forced to connect.
You will not be forced to as long as you stay unincorporated.
Okay,
If you come into the city, you will be required to. That's our ordinance.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the gentleman? Okay. Guess we have an opportunity for rebuttal by the applicant, but I think that was all handled in this discussion. Would the applicant like to make a final statement? No? Okay. Then moving on, zoning calendar number 2725, we are looking for a motion to recommend either approval or denial of a map amendment from CR, Conservation, Recreation, Agriculture, to R2, Single Family District, 36955 North Northern Avenue. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve zoning calendar item number 2725 for a map amendment rezone for 36955 North Northern Avenue for the Graylow family.
Commissioner Haynes makes a motion to recommend approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Next step for you will be the Community Development Committee, Tuesday, September 5th, in this chamber at approximately 5 p.m. You can check with city staff for the final time on that. Thank you. Good luck. Okay, next item. Item D, V2-23, vacation of the right-of-way, Hazel Street south of Court Place. Who's going to be presenting? Annette? Okay.
Evening, Commissioners. So V223 is for the vacation of the Hazel Street right-of-way. This is brought to you before by the Puerto Rican Society. This piece of property is currently part of their parking lot, and it has been a parking lot for many years.
Everyone, please take your conversation outside. We're having a hearing right now.
So this is the vacation of the right-of-way of Hazel Street. South of Prospect Drive, it's between the Genesee Street and Sharon Road and Lake Street and the Waukegan River. So it's just south of the ravine. This property is in our downtown lakefront overlay district, kind of on the southern end of our downtown. As you can see from these aerials, the highlighted red piece is the part of the property that they are looking to vacate from the city. It is about 70 feet by 40 feet piece of land, just south of Prospect Drive. The land is currently used and maintained by the Puerto Rican Society as part of their parking lot, and they intend to continue using it as their parking lot. This area is in the B5 Central Service District. It is adjacent to B3, which is our general commercial district, as well as some R7 general residence district to the south of it. The approval of this vacation would result in the ownership of this property being transferred to the Puerto Rican Society and the property being on the tax rolls. Denial of this by City Council would result in the right-of-way remaining under ownership of the city and off the tax rolls. Any questions?
Is the Puerto Rican Society not for profit?
Yes, they are paying taxes for the properties that they own.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners for city staff?
So on Genesee Street, oh, sorry. On Genesee Street, I'm familiar with this property. Is there a way to really block that off right now with a fence or something? Because it almost looks like there's still a road there. I know there's not. I know that it's being used for parking, but I do think having some sort of barrier on Genesee Street might be helpful. That's all. It's a comment.
Are you talking about the kind of that access to Prospect Drive off of Genesee?
Yeah.
Kind of where my cruiser is? Okay.
Yeah.
That part of the property is not being considered for the vacation, but that is something that we can look at on the
Okay.
zoning side in our department, yes. But not for the sake of this approval.
Yes, Commissioner
Thank
Bill.
you.
I have a question as far as first responders. Do they still have full access to everything that they had before?
Yes, nothing is, they have not proposed any changes to the site. It has been part of their parking lot for many years, and they are planning to continue it as part of their parking lot.
Thank you.
Anything else from commissioners? Okay, I'd like to ask the applicant to please step forward. Who's going to be presenting on this? Well, what I'd like to do is to swear you all in, just in case any of you are going to be asking questions. Are you going to be speaking? Okay. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, please proceed and state your name and affiliation to the project. And also, please make sure before you leave the podium that you write your name and information down there.
Carmelo Rivera, I'm the president of the Puerto Rican Society.
My name is Diego Vega. I'm the vice president.
Welcome. Please present your request.
Okay, one of the things is we're trying to get that because we're going to fix our parking lot. And every time we do that part too. So every time we do that, we're spending money on something that don't belong to us. And we asking the city to give us that piece of property so we can have more parking. And then since we're fixing it, we don't want later on after we fix it, and they tell us that we cannot use that as our parking.
So we're gonna, if I can add, we're gonna resurface that whole parking lot area, and that's, could be a problem. I don't know if we have to get a permission from the city to do that. I imagine so. So that would alleviate that problem. And it would look kind of weird not resurfacing that spot. It's a 40 by 70, I believe, 40 by 70-foot section, so if you guys be so kind and let us have it, we'll take good care of it for the next 100 years. We've already done 50, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
Yes, please.
if I may say something, it is true. That piece of property is very useful for Florida society, and they've been maintaining it for, like Mr. Vega said, they've been maintaining it, like Mr. Vega said, for the past, 50 years in existence, so they just want to try to do things the right way, the legal way, so, and this is the process. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions for the petitioners? Okay, I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out in support of this request. Is there anybody here who would like to speak out in opposition to this request? Okay. Would you like to make a final statement?
Please give it to us so we can take.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm just following the format. All right. In this case, then, we'd like to ask for a motion to recommend either approval or denial for vacation of the right-of-way, Hazel Street, south of Court Place.
I recommend approval of V-2-23, vacation of the right-of-way, Hazel Street, south of Court Place.
Motion by Commissioner Rivera to recommend approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Haynes. Do we have any further discussion on this motion? Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations, good luck with your next 50 years.
Thank you.
Next step is going to be the Community Development Committee, Tuesday, September 5th, in this chamber at about 5 o'clock. And that is the last item on this
Chairman?
agenda. Yes,
Can I just say something?
Of course.
The Puerto Rican Society has been doing a lot of work on the exterior of the building, and it's looking great, and it's noticed. Thank you.
they do a great job with their property.
Thank you for supporting us also.
Thank you. Anything further? I'd like to ask for a motion for adjournment.
So
Motion by Commissioner Rivera,
Second.
second by Commissioner Howe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. This is just meeting number 1. We still have meeting. Second meeting, I would like to call to order the Thursday, August 10th, 2023, 7 o'clock meeting of the Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson? Here. Bill?
Here.
Griffin? Here. Grimes? Howe?
Here.
Haynes?
Here.
Rivera?
Here.
Rodriguez? Here, we do have a quorum. And before we start, I'd like to just explain a couple of things. First of all, we had 2 meetings scheduled tonight because we were expecting a very long second meeting because of one of the items that was on the agenda, which seemed to have drawn a lot of public response, and that was the car wash request for 1350 North Lewis Avenue, and that has been withdrawn. That request has been withdrawn, so that item is not being heard, and it will not be heard since it's been withdrawn. And what else? Is there anybody here that came for that item? No? Okay. All right, and just for the record, the reason that we started this meeting late, 'cause I know people are going to be watching this at a later date on YouTube, and just so that they understand, the meeting is starting late because we had a 6 o'clock meeting scheduled that ran past the 7 o'clock start time, so that's why we're starting this meeting late. Otherwise, we usually start our meetings promptly on time. Okay, we had a roll call already. Next item is the minutes. The minutes of the meeting of July 13th. You have it in your packet. I hope you've all had a chance to review them. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the July 13th Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Bill. Are there any comments, corrections, or changes to the minutes? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin? Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
Abstain.
Rodriguez?
Yes. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Item 3, audience time. This is an opportunity for anybody here who would like to address the commission on any matter, whether it's on the agenda or not. If you're here to discuss any of the items that are on the agenda, those are going to be handled at a public hearing, and you will be able to comment at any time. But if anybody just wants to address the commission on any item at all, now is your chance. Nobody? Okay. Old business. We have 2 items which were for the same project, zoning calendar number 2721 and 2722, which, as I mentioned previously, were withdrawn. So they are no longer going to be heard. That project has been withdrawn. New business, item 5. There's no other old businesses that we need to discuss? No? Okay. Item 5, new business. Now, the next 2 are for the same project. Is that correct? 27, 26? Yes.
Yes, that's correct. That is
Okay.
pertaining to 0 North Macquarie.
They're both for 0 North Macquarie, okay. Zoning, item A, zoning calendar number 2726, map amendment to rezone 0 North Macquarie. The tax ID number 08-17-100-005 from R4, 1 and 2 family residence to R6 general residence. And item B is zoning calendar number 2727, a request for variance from parking requirements of 2 spaces per unit to 1.2 spaces per unit at 0 North Macquarie, tax ID number 08-17-100-005. These are going to be presented as one project, one request, but there are 2 different items, so they will be voted on separately. So I'd like to ask city staff for their presentation.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for joining tonight. Tyler Williams, assistant planner. And as the chairman said, I will be presenting 2 zoning calendars, 2726 and 2727. The first one, 2726, is a map amendment to rezone the property from R4, 1 and 2 family residence to R6 general residence. R6 allows multifamily development as a permitted use. The petitioner is Bear Development and the owner is James A. Onan, and Bear Development is working with the Waukegan Housing Authority on this project. As Marcus said, this property doesn't currently have an address because it is undeveloped. So the address is 0, and once they submit building permits, the engineering department will assign an address that's aligned with the neighbors. And speaking of the neighbors, Armory Terrace to the north is zoned R6, which matches the proposed zoning, and Chapel Gardens Senior Apartments to the south is zoned R1. And even though it's zoned R1, if anybody has driven past Chapel Gardens, it's pretty dense, low rise, and it's senior apartments, so it fits in with this proposed development. And currently the property is undeveloped. We have heard no objection or support from the public. And this is for a better description, street view. If you're heading southbound, if anybody knows, you would have just passed Public Works and the animal control shelter. And as you can tell, it's been undeveloped for a long time, which is why it has no address. So, and this is the site plan. So that's the site that you just saw. Macquarie is right here. There will be 2 curb cuts going in and out. Here is the 28-unit, 3-story building, which is a permitted use, as I said, which is why it's not before you tonight. And then the standards for the map amendment, which you can find in the staff report. And since these are pretty standard across all the map amendments, I'll just talk about what the options and alternatives are. If you approve this or recommend approval for this map amendment, then the property will change zoning from R4 to R6. And then the variance we have is for a request from parking requirements of 2 parking spaces per unit to 1.2 parking spaces per unit. And this is Article 12, Class number 6 of our zoning ordinance. This will change the total from 56 parking spaces to 34 parking spaces. There's a 28-unit building with elderly population, so the petitioner feels that this is adequate parking, as do we. The wetland covers the easternmost portion of the property, which is the hardship for the petitioner. And if you saw on the site plan here, this is the wetland here, and here's the parking lot. Now, we don't have, as a city, a specific ordinance for the wetland. We follow Lake County's ordinance, and per Lake County's ordinance, 80%, or you must have a 40-foot wetland buffer, and of the 40-foot wetland buffer, 80% must be permanent open space. And if you can see, this little red area encroaches the wetland buffer, but even with this encroachment, there will be 96% permanent open space. So our engineering department had no concerns. Of course, they'll go through a full wetland review once the building permit gets submitted, but preliminary issues, we found none. And then standards for the variances, which are, again, in the staff report. So the options and alternatives for the variances, if you approve the variance, then it'll go in line with the map amendment. This one is kind of unusual because, majority of the time the variance comes first. The variance has to get approved before the conditional use or the map amendment. But this one, the variance will come second, because if there's no map amendment to R6, the variance is kind of moot. They would have to follow the variance. They would have to follow the parking requirements of 2 spaces per unit if you deny this variance. Any questions from the commissioners?
Commissioner Hayes.
Are we talking 26 and 27 at the same time here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
27 was the variance.
For the parking,
Parking, and then, yes, 26 was the map
Okay.
amendment.
I know that in past situations where we've had parking situations, there have been requirements for islands and for trees, et cetera. And unless don't know what is reflecting that in this drawing here, I don't see any islands, I don't see any trees as we've required for other
Correct.
establishments that have come to us.
Yes, and that is something that our office is currently reviewing, of the landscaping and parking spaces and the islands in specific. And so it's kind of under review. We don't really understand our, jurisdiction with, I know we've required them in the past, but going forward, we'll need some clarification because the landscaping and islands come from the tree preservation and landscaping ordinance, not the zoning ordinance, so that's why they're not in.
Just to piggyback on what Tyler was saying, he's absolutely correct. Those landscaping requirements, the island requirements are set forth in chapter 22, that's tree preservation. And this body can make requirements, it can make conditions, so long as there is some relation to the relief. However, our ordinance puts things like landscaping islands properly before the city council. And so we wouldn't be voting to recommend approval of a landscaping island. However, we can always make a condition so long as it relates to the relief asked for.
And does it relate to this relief that they're asking for?
It sounds like it, they're looking into it.
Okay.
And right now they're...
Yes, and if I may add to that, the way we've added parking landscapes in the past have always been a condition
Right.
of the conditional use. And
Right.
since there's no conditional use, we didn't really have a chance to add the
Okay.
conditions. It's a permitted use.
Okay.
So this is just for variance for the parking lot. So variances are kind of tricky where we don't have the conditional, teeth of the CUP. And there's significant open space on the property to kind of help with the stormwater runoff.
And that open space that's indicated here, is that accessible and usable by the senior residents that are going to be living here? Will it be used like a yard space? Because there is no green space around this building that would be considered yard for residents. I see a potential patio, but that's all I see. So is that green space there for them to use? Do we know that?
I believe it is, but I will have to let the petitioner answer
Okay.
that. I cannot answer in
Okay.
confidence.
Well, those are my questions.
Commissioner Howard?
Yeah, you mentioned this is senior housing. Is it age restricted, and what is the age?
Yes, so again, this is just for the parking lot and the map amendment. So the housing aspect of it, we don't really have control over as it's a permitted use, but they indicated to us that it was a elderly population as a hardship of the variance. They said, elderly population tend to drive less, so they use that in the
That's why
argument
I
for
asked
the
the
variance.
question. Is
Yeah,
elderly
so-
35 or is my age 65? So everything's relative, right?
Yeah, sure.
So we can ask the petitioner that. The other one is, I hate to be armchair civil engineer, but is somebody requiring to have two entrances into the parking lot? Because it seems like the drive is an issue with the wetlands, and I see a lot of apartments in Waukegan where they just have one access drive, and you've got a loop drive around the whole property, and, I would think, why do you just get rid of the drive on the backside, and you get a lot more green space, and you don't have the wetland problem? So I'm wondering, was that a requirement of somebody in the city, or?
I do not know the answer of that, to be honest.
Is that something the fire department required? I don't know.
That's a good question. I could look into that, but
It seemed like a win-win. It'd save the
Yeah, I don't-
property owner money, it'd get more green space, and you wouldn't, get into the wetland area.
Commissioner Griffin?
I have one concern about reducing the parking requirement.
Please speak into your
If the
microphone.
building if the building changes hands, it's a problem. Because seniors may not move into the building with a new owner. And it may be individuals with a couple with two cars.
That's a good question. Can you make that a requirement for variance, or is that not allowed?
It's a little
I
tough.
think you should go by the requirement, there's a reason.
The petitioner will speak to that aspect as well. because it's related to the funding sources for the building and what the requirements are there.
Okay.
Is this a housing authority? I can't tell from the description. It looks like the owner is Mr. Onan, but the new building will also be a senior building, the housing authority. It looks like he's doing it on behalf of the housing authority. So is this going to be a housing authority building?
Mr. Chairman, perhaps it's a good time to call the petitioner up
Okay.
to make their presentation,
I think
and then
that's
we
an
can.
excellent idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the city staff before you bring the petitioners up? Okay, who's going to be presenting? Well, I would like to swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please proceed and let everybody know your name and your affiliation to the project.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Beck. I'm with Bear Development. I'm a project manager with them. And a little bit of background. I've been before you a couple of times before. Bear Development has partnered with the Waukegan Housing Authority on the redevelopments of Barwell Manor and Armory Terrace, which is just to the north of this property. So this is actually a part of a larger redevelopment of Ravine Terrace. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's an 8-story tower right across from the Housing Authority's offices. It was built in the 60s, hasn't really received substantial reinvestment since that time. So we'll be taking this as kind of the third WHA property through what's called a RAD transition. So it's moving from public housing, which is Section 9, onto Section 8 platform, which basically gives the Housing Authority the ability to leverage funds, private equity, to do a large-scale redevelopment. So that tower is 98 units of senior and elderly preferenced units. The age is 55 plus. And right now, it's 56 studios and 42 one-bedrooms. The studios are very small. So the intent with our redevelopment there is to combine 2 studios to make 1 bedroom. But to do that, those 56 studios go to 28 one-bedrooms. Under the RAD program, one of HUD's most important kind of policy points is to make sure there's not a reduction in housing as part of this. So what you're seeing here is those 28 units moving to this site in a brand new building. So it will be senior preferenced. And for those with disabilities, you had mentioned the question of if the building turns over. This property will have low-income housing tax credits along with HUD restrictions that are a minimum of 40 years. So this would be a property kind of under these programs with these preferences and requirements for a very long time. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have specific to the development.
Commissioner Howell.
Can you answer the driveway question?
So we looked at making it a one-way in so that we completely stayed outside of that 40-foot buffer. Under the Lake County ordinance right now, like Tyler mentioned, it still meets the requirements due to some rules in there around averaging and having that additional open space there. We could look into it. It is something we kind of, when we looked at going to a one drive aisle, it still worked for the fire truck turn radiuses, but we'd have to look into getting rid of it altogether and what that would mean for how emergency vehicles could get in and out.
Is this going to be in the elevator building?
It is, yes.
Any other questions from the commission?
Are we allowed to, I mean, I think that to address the green space issue, the engineering issue with the wetlands and the driveway, is there a way to ask for that to be further investigated in our approval or whatever, we move forward? Is that something that's, we have the ability to do?
So what's before us is whether the parking space, whether the standards have been met as to the variance from the parking space requirements, as well as whether standards have been met for the map amendment. To the extent that those issues you brought up, the landscape green space relate to the standards, that can be made a condition. And if it's something that you wish to have staff perhaps talk with the applicant, you're always free to vote on continuing this matter. However, if, staff can always continue to work with the applicant up until this comes before the Community Development Committee. And so there's a few ways that this can kind of be rolled forward.
Parking in the green space. Right now, for the 98 units of housing that exist over there right now, there are only 27 parking spots. So those 27 parking spots will remain over there for the 70 units. But right now, that is adequate for the population that is served. We think 1.2 per unit over here provides beyond adequate for the residents, any guests or home health aides and staff. We typically don't have more than 1.2 in a senior building that is not public housing. And as for the green space, this site is adjacent to Clearview Park, which has walking paths. It was just redone in the last several years. And as you mentioned, there is a patio planned outdoors. We'll have outdoor amenities kind of by that stormwater detention pond. And the inside has a fully suited community room, reading room, storage for units. It's really an amenitized building. So we think that there will be kind of adequate indoor and outdoor amenities and things that are very nearby. One of the reasons we chose this location was that for residents, they would have easy access to bus lines there. The Housing Authority is building a new office on the Armory Terrace site to the north, so residents will have quick and easy access to anything they need at the Public Housing Authority. We just thought this was a really good fit for the population.
You mentioned the term senior and elderly preference.
That's correct.
Okay, is there any scenario that you can foresee under which you would not be able to fill this building with senior and elderly and you would have to change the rules?
So Ravine Terrace was built in 1966. That preference has existed since then, and for the last 50 plus years, they've never had a problem filling the buildings with seniors and elderly. Our experience after these redevelopments is that even more people want to live in these units, and anyone who is a senior or a disabled person rises to the top of that wait list. So that building has been that way for 70 years. We don't anticipate any issue. The Housing Authority right now has a wait list of over 400 families, many of those seniors, and all of the units here will be one-bedroom units. So it will be a fit for seniors, and I don't anticipate any issues. We've not seen them for 60 years, and this will be a new building with, I think, an even longer wait list.
Thank you. Any
And
other questions?
just a note on that, that's a HUD regulation. We cannot make it a hard set aside. HUD does not allow it, but our preference for this has already been approved by HUD.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for petitioner?
I just want to make a statement, understanding the full plan, I think it's great. It's really a great amenity to have for our community, so.
Thanks, we're really excited about it too.
Agreed, and you have given very good answers to all of our questions, too.
Yes. Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak out in support of this request? Is there anyone here who would like to speak out in opposition to this request? Okay. Would you like to make a final statement?
Oh, sorry, I was signing in. No, we're really excited for this third phase. I think Farwell and Armory have both come along beautifully, and we're really excited. This is the third out of the 4 stages, and we're really excited to get this one off the ground.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to handle these 2 items separately. So we're looking for a motion for zoning calendar 2726 to recommend either approval or denial of a request for a map amendment to rezone 0 North Macquarie 08-17-100-005 from R4 1 and 2 family residence, R6 general residence. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Howard to recommend approval. Recommend approval. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. We have a second. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please.
Griffin? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Next item, item B, zoning calendar 2727. This is a request for a variance from parking requirements of 2 spaces per unit to 1.2 spaces per unit at 0 North Macquarie, 08-17-100-005. We'll give a motion to recommend either approval or denial.
I'll motion for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Haynes to recommend approval. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Howe. Any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please.
Griffin? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations, good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next step will be Community Development Committee, Tuesday, September 5th, in this chamber at approximately 5 p.m.
Thank you. We'll see you then.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more items which are all part of the same project. Items 5C and 5D. We're going to have these presented as one project, but we'll vote on both these items separately. Item C, zoning calendar 2728, variances from the minimum lot size, landscape buffer, and landscape island requirements for motor vehicle sales at 2503 Washington Street. And item 5D, zoning calendar number 2729, a request for conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales at 2503 Washington Street. Who will be presenting from city staff? Sam.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sam Green, Assistant Planner. I've got one more case for you tonight. It is 2 zoning calendar numbers. The project is ultimately for a motor vehicle sales use in the B3 Commercial District. In order to get this conditional use, 3 variances are required. A little history on this project. We've been working with this applicant for a very long time. Project started with a long list of variances, and he and I have worked together a lot to bring that number down, create a site plan that we're both pretty proud of, so hopefully you will enjoy that as well. Little location, the red dot on that larger map shows where it is within the city, and there's a zoomed in as well. As you can see, it is adjacent to other B3 uses, as well as some residences and the hospital property. This is the property as it exists now. There's an entrance off of Washington Street and Keller Avenue. The pavement goes up to the sidewalk on both sides, and the building is as is pictured there. With the property owner, we have worked towards, the first variance required is for the minimum lot size. The zoning ordinance specifies that the minimum lot size for this use is 30,000 square feet. This lot is just under 20,000. Since the ability to acquire other parcels is not feasible, he's seeking a variance for this. The second variance is for setbacks and landscape buffers. The existing layout has none. The zoning ordinance requires 10 feet from every property line adjacent to a street and 5 feet from every property line adjacent to another property. Due to some hardships on the site, including the location of the existing building and a sidewalk along the north property line that encroaches onto the applicant's property, the requires buffers are not able to be met in full and variances are needed. The applicant is able to provide the landscape buffers provided in green. So along the north property line, the full setback of where cars will be parked is 10 feet as required by the ordinance, although since there is a sidewalk within the first 5 feet of his property line, he's only able to put landscape for 5 feet of that. Along the east property line, he will be putting a 5-foot buffer along all those parcels except for where the entrance will be. And along the south property line, he will be putting landscape buffers where there will not be a building. Variance is needed to reduce for the west property line due to the nature of the small size of the lot and the balance between providing some landscape buffer and the need to accommodate cars for the sales use. This is the balance that has been provided. I should also note that an entrance will be closed along Washington Street, so extra landscaping will be provided there. Ultimately, we're going to be left with this updated site plan. As you can see, there's landscaping where we saw last time, as well as a proposed addition to the building that bringing the square footage up a little bit, but also reducing the ability to provide a setback there. There will be no parking in the required landscape buffer zones, and it will meet all other requirements of the Tree Preservation and Landscape Ordinance, except for one part, which is the landscape island requirement. Speaking earlier today with Corporation Counsel, this is not under jurisdiction of this body to grant the variance for, but we are still presenting it to you so you're clear on the nature of the entire project. Due to the inability to provide these landscape or islands and the need to provide space for cars to sell, he's requesting a variance, although he has offered to provide these 6 planter boxes as kind of a concession to allow for a little bit more landscaping on the site. So here's a side-by-side, the existing layout as it is now and proposed should these variances and CUP applications go through. And we'll get to that in a second. In your staff report for the CUP, there's a number of conditions. I'd like to bring your attention to a few key conditions, the first of which being number 4, petitioner shall obtain a sign permit for any new signage. If you've been to the site, you might see new signage with a sign permit. Next is number 10, wheel stops will be installed in those middle spots. That will bring it into the final conformity with our zoning ordinance. And then number 12, staff put that in there since auto repair, which happens in the building, will still occur as a secondary use. The primary use of the facility will be for auto sales. The applicant has indicated his desire to continue auto repair as a secondary use. For example, repairing cars that are going to be sold at that property. The applicant will give more detail about what that repair use will be, but staff put that requirement in just to kind of put into writing that it is a secondary use. That number is made up. It is not based on any math really, so it is up to you what that number should be, if there is a limit at all, and I welcome you to talk about that with the applicant. That is all I have. I welcome the applicant up to the podium to speak more about his project, unless you all have more questions for staff about the project relating to our zoning ordinance.
Yes, Commissioner Commissioner Haynes.
Florian, I don't mind.
She's here all the time. She should just be up here, right?
So I just had a couple of questions. Condition number 6, there shall be no storage of vehicles, trucks, or materials unrelated to the business. So I know that it had, in the description of the business, it talked about it was also box truck rental was included in that business. So are we saying that box trucks will be allowed there or not, based on what that condition is?
Commissioner Hayes, can I ask you where you're finding that language about box truck rental?
Okay, that's a good question. I'll have to go look for where I read that. There was some description of the business. Let me find it. It's under the conditional use permit application, the back side, page 1. It says, narrative detail, it's the first sentence. The proposed use of this property for which this application for conditional use is submitted is to integrate a car sales operation within an existing auto repair shop and box truck rental business.
Yes, so the box truck rental is part of the existing business. You can ask the applicant about future use of that site and whether that'll be included.
Okay. And then I do question the number 10, why wheel stops are only required for spaces 1 through 12, and maybe that's something I just don't understand about regulations.
Sure. Good question. So the curb at the front spots, shall we say, acts as a curb stop, and the zoning ordinance requires some kind of wheel stop at every parking spot, so a curb can work as a wheel stop.
Okay, so 13 through 22, but there's spots 23 and 24 next to the building. Would those require wheel stops too?
If you'd like to require that, you may.
But they're basically the same, in the same situation as spots 13 through 22 in respect to there is nothing there currently, correct?
I hesitated initially in writing my staff report to place that, since that might be used as a little bit more of an access to the back of the building. You can see the dumpster is on that south
Okay.
property line there. If you would like to add that, you are in control of the
Okay,
conditions.
I just wanted to understand the rationale for it. And then, the number of, I guess the question would be for the petitioner, how many of these spaces are for, I read somewhere else with 10 employees, and so if there's 10 employees and, box trucks, how many cars would there actually be for sale, you know? So that would be, I guess, a question for the petitioner.
He can
Right.
definitely answer that. There's also space within the building. We just don't count that towards the official parking count of the site,
Okay.
for which he's actually exceeding. I believe the requirement under our zoning ordinance is for 22 spaces, and he is at 24.
Okay. All right, those are my questions.
Any other questions or comments?
22
Ms.
spaces for sales?
That's correct. We did that class 33, motor vehicle sales and service, which requires 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area, plus 1 spot per every 1,500 feet of outdoor display area. So I calculated that as the spots, the number of spots he's providing on the site. I did not calculate drive aisles or entrance ramps towards that.
Okay. Thank you.
And what about
Mr.
the,
Rivera.
what about the cars that are gonna be repaired? Should there be a limit on how many cars that will be repaired? Because there's only, what, how many, two bays there that they have there for repairs?
Sure. I believe there are a couple more than 2, maybe even 3 or 4. But that limit is up to you. I put that condition in there as a placeholder. You have the ultimate say on what that limit should be, or if there should be one at all. And you're welcome to speak about that with the applicant as well.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I apologize, one more.
Commissioner Haynes.
At the bottom of the conditions, there's a paragraph that refers to, the property owner would be required to obtain permits and construct a conforming parking lot. So that's just, it's not that there's not permits right now, it's just that to make those changes, they would need to make a.
If you would like to repair the parking lot, you would still need to apply for permits.
All right. All right, who's going to be presenting? The applicant? Are all 3 of you going to be speaking? Okay, please come forward. I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Okay. Please proceed. State your name and your affiliation to the project, please.
Adnan Meshkic, I'm the property owner and the business owner proprietor.
What is your name?
Adnan Meshkic.
Okay.
I'm the business owner, proprietor of the business. My family and I have been in the Lake County in the automobile sector for over 2 decades. I said, my family and I have been in the Lake County in the auto sector for over 2 decades. I've gone through one of these in Beach Park, Midtown Motors. I've gone through the conditional use zoning, the new blacktop, new landscaping, new trees, fencing. I would like to do the same thing for this property. I would like to improve the area, increase office sales space and additional workshop space in the back. He had some concerns. There's currently 4 bays, 4 lifts in the property. What other questions or concerns do you have? So the reason why I want to keep the car repair is this business is cyclical, so there's peaks and troughs. So if this car sales is a little slow, I would like to have the opportunity to continue fixing customers' cars that come in. We specialize in engines, transmissions, brakes, tires, rotors. We will not do any painting or body work. I don't specialize that. The facility is not set up for that, so that will not happen. If somebody comes in to do oil changes and that's the only service, we'll refer them to another facility. But if they're in there to get some engine work, brakes, tires, and that will complete the service, we'll do an oil change for them. But primarily as a one-off, I prefer not to do that. But yeah.
I thought I had heard that the repairs were going to be limited to cars that were for sale.
Yes, but so currently it's an automobile repair shop, and I like to keep that use in case there's slowdowns to, but it's not going to be the primary use. So if you guys have a restriction how many, I would like to increase them more than 5, because sometimes the cycles can last, up to a year. Really slow.
What number is something that would allow your business to be continuously working and profitable? What number would you want?
Around 100 a month or so. I think I like something a high limit, but yeah.
That's a big difference between 5.
Yeah. I understand, but I plan never to hit that. I just want a large buffer. So
how many do you service a month right now?
We do, for our own self, we do about 1,000 cars a year to get them prepared to sell, and that's usually a longer turnaround versus somebody come in to get the work done.
So you're preparing 1,000 cars for sale. How many, like if this is currently an auto shop and not a car sales shop,
yeah.
How many cars are you servicing a month, a year, a week, whatever number you want to give?
So at that location, I also fix cars for my dad's dealership. So he has a place in Zion, and it's mostly sales floor and car lot. So they don't have a facility to fix it. Yeah. So this deal helps him sell his cars and my cars also.
And so how many is that about?
1,000 cars a year.
A year, not a month.
No, a year, yeah, not a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I wish, yeah.
You did say a month, just so you
my
know.
apologies.
Okay, was that your full presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I got one. When you service the cars, are they there overnight? Or are they people that come and then they get their car serviced and then they leave? They're not on site?
Yeah, it's usually they come, it's usually not.
So we don't have like a half a dozen
No.
cars on there being serviced that are just parked on your lot every night?
No.
Okay.
Will you be continuing box truck rental from that
No,
location?
that was just when I acquired the property, the previous owners, they had box truck rentals and repair, auto repair.
Okay.
So you're saying you will not be doing box?
No.
Okay.
So 1,000 cars a month is 1,000 cars a year is 83 a month.
Okay.
You think that's,
is that from people from the street or including every?
well, so you said you service 1,000 cars a
Yeah,
year.
for sale.
That's for sale?
For sale,
and then,
A year.
A year?
Yes.
And then how many do you service outside of that are just serviced?
It honestly depends.
Okay.
It honestly depends. So sometimes I can't, I'm booked up. So it could be 0 for a couple weeks, and sometimes it's a lot of them.
So when this condition number 12, which says only 5 vehicles other than those being sold by the business may be repaired in the auto shop per month, you're already doing whatever the 1,000 a year comes to per month.
Yeah.
In order to help supplement your business during slow times, does 5 seem like it's sufficient number or no?
No.
Okay. What is the sufficient number for you? Don't tell me 1,000 a month.
No. Like around 100, give or take 20.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
So approximately 100 cars a month above and beyond the 1,000 a year.
Yeah.
So that'll be another 1,200 cars that you'd be servicing a year.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. You just want the ability.
Ability, yeah. I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to be fixing that many cars. I just want a large enough buffer where I don't have to be like, oh, I can't take this job because I'm hitting my quota. That's it.
So out of this 100 cars a month, how many would you expect to have on your premises at any one time? I mean, I'm talking about outside cars that you'd be servicing.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay, I was saying, of this 100 or 83, whatever it happens to be, cars per month that you would like to service from the outside, how many would you expect to have on site? What's the maximum number you would expect to have on site at any one time?
As many lifts as I have. So there's 4 bays. I can fit about, in the building and in the back of the building, about just over 10 cars. So in the building, I can probably fit 6 cars and about another 4 to 6 cars in the back. Yeah. So most of the cars are going to be in there. When they're done, then the customer takes it away.
Commissioner Howard.
I guess I'm a little less concerned about the number of repairs because a transmission takes a very long time,
Yeah.
whereas doing the rotors is pretty quick, right?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
I mean, count the number of cars, I really don't think matters. In fact, I'd like you to do more cars,
Right.
frankly, as
Yeah.
long as they don't stay on site.
Mhm.
People come in, you repair them, and they leave.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, there's certainly gonna be situations where you are probably keeping a car overnight, I would guess.
Potentially,
And
yeah.
do you feel that you have the ability to keep those cars that are being serviced that need to be overnight within the garage
Oh, yeah.
facility, so they're not out in the parking lot?
Yes.
And
Yes. Usually if it takes a little longer, then the car just stays on the lift. We're waiting for parts to come in, and you know, sometimes can grab on back order, like a day or two. So they'll be inside on the lift waiting for parts.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners for the petitioner?
No, obviously they're registered with the state of Illinois as, obviously you're registered with the state of Illinois as a car sales,
Yes.
because that was the problem with that property before. There'd be cars out there, sure it was a mechanical, an auto repair shop, but they were also selling cars, which was illegal. So,
Well, which place?
the property that we're talking about, Keller and Washington, the former owners, exactly.
Oh, really?
So they got tagged many times, you know,
Okay.
because of,
That was-
cars that were there,
Okay.
without, plates, you know, just sitting in the lot, so that was a problem.
Mhm. Yeah, the dealership in,
But my concern is, that's a lot of traffic, you know, for that area there, it's the traffic, especially on Washington Street, or actually that Washington and Keller coming in and out of the property. That's a busy intersection.
I did
So I
get
don't know
a
if you
traffic
did any
study.
traffic studies on that.
We did have a traffic study completed as part of this application process, and the traffic study came back saying that removing the entrance off of Washington Street would have no discernible effect on traffic counts in the area.
Okay, any other questions for the petitioners? All right, I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out in support of this request? Is there anybody else here who would like to speak out in opposition to this request? And as far as I know, we have no letters of support or objection. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Would you like to make a final statement?
I'm excited to get this project going. I hope I get approval in the upcoming weeks. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to handle these 1 to 10. There are 2 zoning calendar items. Zoning calendar 2728. We're looking for a motion to recommend either approval or denial of a request for variances from the minimum lot size, landscape buffer, and landscape island requirements for motor vehicle sales at 2503 Washington Street.
Before we get to the motion, I just want to reiterate what was said during the hearing. So the landscape island is not before the commission. That is a Chapter 22 consideration. And so the motion today would be to recommend approval or recommend denial of variances from the minimum lot size and the landscape buffer. It would just be those 2 issues.
Those 2.
So moved.
Motion by
Approval.
Commissioner Howard to recommend approval of zoning calendar 2728, variances from the minimum lot size and landscape buffer for motor vehicle sales at 2503 Washington Street. Is that correct? Making a
Correct.
motion? Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Bill. Any further discussion on this motion? Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Griffin? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
No.
Rodriguez?
Yes. Motion carries. Zoning calendar number 2729, we are looking for a motion to recommend either approval or denial of a conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales at 2503 Washington Street. We have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, but I don't know what number to put in condition number 12. I would ask for input on that. I mean, he's asking for $100 a month. Does any other commissioner or staff have any?
Staff agrees with any number the commission suggests,
And one thing you can
as
do,
long as the sales is the primary use of the site.
one thing you can do in crafting this motion would be a motion to, for instance, approve in this case the conditional use permit. And as it's, the motion is made and seconded, once you enter into deliberations and discuss, you can then make the motion to amend that initial motion to reflect a change to this condition 12. And so if you decide there's another number at that point, and I misspoke, it's not a, well, it is, yeah, so you'd be making a motion to amend that initial motion.
Boy, that sounds overly complicated.
That's Robert's
Can't we
rules.
just put a number on it? I mean, I'm fine with 100. I think that's a.
Can I
fine.
ask how city staff came up with this number in the recommendation?
Frankly, I just made it up as a placeholder, and I knew that we would discuss it here, so.
Thanks
So
for
we-
being
I
we
would
can-
like to say I had some fancy calculation, but
So
that
we
would
can
not be
make up
true.
a different number.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the zoning calendar item number 2729, conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales in the B3 General Commercial District at 2503 Washington Street with a change to the condition number 12, changing the number from only 5 vehicles to a maximum of 100 vehicles per month.
Second.
Okay, a motion to recommend approval of zoning calendar 2729 conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales at 2503 Washington Street, subject to the conditions recommended by city staff with the variation of condition number 12, with a change from 5 vehicles to 100 vehicles. Is that the motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on this motion at this point? Okay, I have a question before we go further. There are 19 conditions stated here for this zoning calendar item. Have you read them all, and do you feel that you are able to comply with all of these recommendations?
Yes, just maybe number 10, with the curb stops. Because I think it might make it just a little easier for cars to come in and out, either forward or in reverse. Isn't it in the middle lane?
And the city staff feel that there is room for discussion on this item?
He's welcome to apply for a waiver of that requirement through the Development Review Board, although that is an ordained thing in our ordinance.
But as it stands right now, you are recommending this as a condition?
Yes, we recommend that condition.
Okay, so.
That is what the ordinance
without
requires.
changing the motion, we can go ahead with this motion with number 10. As it is written
This is the middle.
with the understanding that they can apply for a, what's the word? A variance? Is that correct?
So it would be an exception? Is that what they
Exception.
would be applying to for the Development Review Board, or?
If the petitioner wishes not to have wheel stops, he would need to receive an exception from that statement in the ordinance through the Development Review Board.
So an exception.
Because this is required by ordinance.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Do you understand?
We do it now, or?
No,
Oh, okay.
Do you understand what,
Not really.
So essentially, there's another board that you would have to apply to get that requirement waived.
Okay.
And you would have to show, a need for getting that requirement waived. If you would like to, you may.
Does this prolong the process?
It might. The Development Review Board is tentatively scheduled for August 24th, and you could be added to that agenda. That's up to you. Yeah, do you want to strike that condition and do that, or leave it in?
What do you mean? Cross it out and
Yeah.
Yeah, can we cross it out?
Sure, he's asking to have it waived. If that is up to you all,
Okay,
if you would like to remove that condition.
And the reason why I would like to wait, because it's a pretty small lot, it just makes it easier for not having to go all the way around to parking one way. So then they could be reversed in or reversed out, if that makes sense. Because I think this is only for the middle parking spots. And that's why I was wondering if I can get
okay,
that.
so you're saying this is city ordinance?
Correct.
Okay,
They need a wheel stop of some sort.
Do we have the authority to recommend not following the city ordinance? I mean, this is just a zoning, planning and zoning board.
So we wouldn't be able to overrule this particular requirement. As was said, this would be before the Development Review Board, which is a separate body.
So we would have to leave it in there as written.
No, you can certainly strike it. All of these conditions are up to this commission, right? And so even if you were not to put this condition 10 in there, it would still be required under the under the zoning code, and they would have to apply to the Development Review Board for an exception. So if this wasn't here, it's still required. There's a completely separate body that considers removal of this requirement.
So if we include it, or if we don't include it, it doesn't make any difference because we don't really have any say.
Well, if
Basically.
if you include it, then this commission requires it. If you don't include it, then if you include it, this commission as well as another commission requires it. If you don't include it, only the Development Review Board, by virtue of the code, requires it.
Okay. Okay, who made the motion? Commissioner Anderson? Who made the motion?
This was Commissioner Haynes.
Commissioner Haynes, you made the motion? Okay. Do you, make the motion subject to the conditions with the modification of item 12 and with eliminating number 10 or with keeping it? How does your motion?
Council, by having this commission leave that in, does that make it a harder case for this gentleman to ask for it to be removed by leaving it in? Or by removing it, it becomes totally that commission, that development committee's decision?
It makes it harder, but not much, because remember, this is just a recommending body.
Okay.
And so if the city council should decide after the Development Review Board has heard their petition for an exception, then the city council certainly can make whatever conditions. They can make no conditions.
Okay.
It makes it harder, but not much.
All right. At this point, because it is considered an ordinance, I would say we would leave in number 10 and change number 12 to 100.
Okay, so your motion stands as you originally stated it?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
no change. Okay, let me just make sure that everybody understands this. Commissioner Haynes is making a motion to recommend approval of zoning calendar number 2729, conditional use permit for motor vehicle sale at 2503 Washington Street, subject to the conditions recommended by city staff in their letter. the report, with the exception that item number 12 will be changed from 5 vehicles to 100 vehicles per month. That is what you are,
Correct.
that's the motion that's on the floor. Did we have a second? We did, right? Commissioner Howard made the second on that. Okay. Do we have any further discussion on this motion? I think we've got it pretty well clarified.
I just think that city staff have worked very hard to make a difficult piece of property for the use that the petitioner is wanting to use it for, try to work. I think, personally, this is way too small a site for what you're trying to do. And I think that you're going to have difficulty meeting these conditions as a result. But that's my personal opinion. And I know you've worked really hard to try to make this workable.
Anybody else? Roll call vote, please.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Rivera?
No.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations, good luck with your project.
So much.
Next step will be Community Development Committee, Tuesday, September 5th, in this chamber at about 5 o'clock. You get the final time from city staff before the meeting.
Commissioners, before you adjourn, you should have all received a flyer in your packets for the parking meeting on August 24th. Again, we hope you can join us. We're very excited about this and would love for you to be there.
Great, okay. Any other comments before we adjourn? I'd like to ask for motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
So moved by Commissioner Anderson. Second
second it.
by Commissioner Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.